So now I'm going to show some simple motifs which can be combined with the foundational lines that we practiced earlier. And I think something that's really worth bearing in mind is that lots of patterns which are really beautiful and might look complicated on first glance are actually made up of these really simple motifs and lines combined. And it's a real joy when they come together. So a pattern that I do a lot is a sort of teardrop print. I say print because I use a fine tipped brush. This is a size 4, but it can really be any size. Use a fine tipped brush. Again, making sure I've got enough water in my little mixture so that it's quite a smooth consistency. And then the tip of the brush becomes the tip of the teardrop. So it's point and then push. And it's quite a satisfying little teardrop that appears. And what I often do is have them as a 3. And another good thing to practice when you're doing the teardrops is something that actually I've spotted in this book of mine, where you can see here the teardrops, but they're sort of curved and in a repeat. And that is something that's really effective and used a lot in historic decorative painting, particularly Swedish, which this little tin is. So now let's practice doing that shape, but in a sort of curved teardrop. So again, using the tip as the tip of your teardrop and then pushing down. And you can do quite a lot of those. And this can really become a lot of different patterns. This could become a flower if you wanted to do them sort of like this. I'm going to leave some spacing between so that we can see how 2 colours of these together will look. So point and then push down. And basically when you push down, what's happening is your bristles of the brush are just splaying slightly. And so that gives you the fatter bit of it, which is very satisfying. And when you feel sort of confident with it, you can do a few all in a row. If that happens, I came off too quickly, you can just sort of fill it in by hand. But obviously the nicest is when it's like the real true shape that you've made just as you're going. I'll try adding in some blue, like this little Swedish box has. So that I think is a really handy motif to practice, and it's something that I use a lot of the time. So I'm just going to really quickly add some to this scallop line just so you can see how that kind of pattern could work together, combining different elements. You can move the thing that you're painting, obviously, or your brush, whatever you find easiest, but the key is to have the tip of your brush as the tip of your teardrop. And it's really just using your brush like a little stamp. Because I'm at an awkward angle there, I balanced on my little finger, which I do a lot. And I think that's also a really handy tip. It just balances you. There we go, it's looking very sweet. And then I might just add, maybe using the end of a brush, add little blue dots in the middle here. And then maybe some peachy dots. And you can already see how that, which really hasn't taken long at all, is starting to form a really lovely little pattern. So now I'm going to show you just a simple leaf or petal shape, which again is using the pointy tip of our brush. And the basics of this is really something I use a lot. So again, pointy, press down, and then reverse to get the full shape. Another way of doing it, if you feel a little bit more confident with just the shape, is you can just and then fill it. And that is what I probably mostly do, but it's up to you, and it's still using the point of the brush as providing that nice pointed ends. So this shape can be used for just a simple flower, like I'm doing. Or a leaf. And actually the shape is very much inspired by real leaf. If you just look outside, this is such a lovely, perfectly sort of even leaf. So now I'm going to use orange and do some more traditional leaf shapes. Just give it a little stalk, again resting on my little finger, and it's just 2 strokes really for the 2 edges. And it's just that same shape, but just being used in a different way. Go here. And again, I'm always dipping in the water and twiddling the brush just to really keep that point, which is important for having these crisp edges. And then another flower, which is using very much the same movement and technique, is quite common in decorative painting, and it's just a sort of 3-petaled tulip. So it's a similar layout really to the teardrops there, but it does just require a little bit more of your own hand movement. And really don't worry if it's not completely regular or symmetrical, because I really do think that just adds to whatever you're painting. But those are very helpful little shapes to use. You might just add a leaf next to that, which is, you can see, really very much the same shape, but in a different colour. It will make it look as though it's its own thing. You give it a stalk. These are sweet little tulips. Another simple way of doing a flower would be using the dot technique, which you might have to refill for each one. So it tends to work with about 5 or 6 different petals. 3, 4, I think I'm going to fit one more in. There we go. And then I'll give that a little green stem just using this technique. And this time I'm going to make the line do a little curve, which when that's repeated it can be really effective because it sort of makes the whole pattern have a nice movement. So this is another very simple flower, which, as you can see, the leaves here are exactly the same as you've been doing, and the flower itself is really straightforward. I will make this a peachy colour. So it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. And then left around centre. Just quickly fill that in. And this one, what is actually really lovely is doing the little highlight at the end, which I'm going to show you. What can look quite sort of ordinary to begin with, then really becomes lovely. So now for the green, which are these leaves, but just in a sort of combination. So that double-sided curve movement, which is actually so similar to that. That's the thing, so many of these are really just variations on each other. I do like this green and peach together. Here we go, and then we'll come back at the end and add a little bit of highlight on these ones as well. But you can see there that just a combination of all pretty much the same pattern and shape can create very different results.